Folks, when is a war worth the suffering that it brings? This is a question I think that is age-old, that has been discussed in many different varieties, and what you see in front of you right here is the suffering that we have brought with our war that we ultimately had to sign a white peace for against Austria. This is a very, very interesting and quite unique predicament that we will dive into today because we kind of have to. There's a huge change in the political makeup of our country here in 1915 as we slowly but surely walk towards the last 2 decades of Victoria III, and today is the first day of actually addressing it. However, before we get down into the weeds and deal with what transpired over the last 4 years and its aftermath, I just want to take a moment to talk about the issue of how I play Victoria 3 and grand strategy games in general. See, there were a couple of comments under the last video that basically were saying, hey, you should have conscripted everybody in the Congo and had them fight in this war, or hey, you should have just invited Russia. And these things aren't wrong if you play solely optimally, but playing solely optimally is something that is quite frankly far too easy. I've played these games since 2006 with Hearts of Iron 2 and I've had a great time, but at some point when you have invested a lot of hours into them, hey, playing optimally is second nature, and that is pretty bad. Playing optimally would mean that I would just take a state in China and build an economy there because they have infinite population. It would mean that I would just join a customs union if I don't have a port because this will give me access to everything. It would mean that I, for example, would go exclusively for multiculturalism. But you know, at some point when you just keep doing this, every playthrough will really be the same, and you will find yourself in a situation where you're just doing a routine, an algorithm, you're just doing shows at the end of the day. I want to ask you, and I can't really make you drink, but I can lead you to the water, to just give it a shot, you know? When you have a government that is conservative, do conservative things, even if those things are suboptimal. When you have a government that is, for example, liberal, then do liberal things. And you know what was an incredibly national liberal thing? To not call in the repressive and orthodox-oriented Russia that wants hegemony over us. We wanted Western-style independence. It was also very, very normal not to say I'm gonna conscript all the folks down here, and it was very normal to say I will keep my independence. None of these things were actually optimal, but all of these things made the game more fun. So, if you are in a position where you say, hey, this is boring because I end up as the #1 GP, then don't self-sabotage, mind you, but give role-playing at least a little bit of a shot. And with that out of the way, let's just take a look at the situation that we're in and the way that this government wants to lead us out of it. First of all, we still have a revolution going on right here. The Bulgarian uprising wants to do everything to kick it off and maybe even draw in the Bulgarians living over here in the Ottoman Empire. For us, this is terrible because, well, this means that these folks cut off our sea axis. This is without a doubt where the stabbed in the back myth would come from for the Romanian more conservative and reactionary leading forces. We're looking at a situation where this war probably wasn't winnable to begin with, but hey, it's always nice if you can say we didn't lose, we were just betrayed. So this is something that we have to deal with and that will probably inform our internal decisions going forward as well. The other thing that I want to highlight about the last war is that Austria is a very interesting structure. It is a presidential republic with landed voting, multiculturalism, total separation, and guaranteed liberties. I just want you to take this in because we have census suffrage, just past racial segregation, still only have freedom of conscience, and we do have guaranteed liberties, but yeah, look at this standard of living. I'm going to be honest with you. It wouldn't surprise me if the Romanians living here didn't actually want to come over to us. We have most Romanians, and you can see that our Romanian turmoil is higher than the global Romanian turmoil, well, because the people over here in Austria are actually quite happy. We were trying to rip them out of this multicultural republic, this Vielvölkerstaat, and maybe we are the bad guys, huh? But obviously we don't see it from this angle. Now, this aside, we are also in a couple of other wars. We're a war here against France. They are going for Ethiopia. This makes a lot more sense, you know. They're trying to take Amhara here and Puppet Harar. That makes a lot more sense if you consider that, yep, this is the French market. France clearly decided Britain has gotten the center of Africa. We shall get the East. And we are currently in the East, and we're currently incredibly, Jesus Christ, incredibly weak. So this is definitely a ripe target, and we can't really oppose them. I will straight up capitulate out of this. France is not an opponent that we can take on. The other one is this right here. This is a Bornean uprising, and this one is a bit more interesting because while we currently do not have the capacities to take them down, this is a war that also actually is active against the US because, well, basically our Borneans rebelled together. If the US take care of the Bonian uprising, then we just get our colonies back. Let's hope that this doesn't become a second Vietnam, or well, a first Vietnam in our timeline here, and instead just comes back into our hands. This is our foreign situation, we don't have to capitulate here, and we can definitely win against the uprising. The other thing that I'm gonna do, and that will become a problem, and I'm really looking forward to it because I just today fixed a bug around this, I will be researching all the way down to mass propaganda, and then actually I want, there you go, mass surveillance as well. If you wanted to play this optimally, of course, do not research this, because this makes it so that strikes can happen, this makes it so that fascism can rise, that people get more agitated via the minimum expected standard of living, but hey, that's exactly how we play this, right? We like to live in a way that is actually fun. So, let's research this and try to get that going. We're also technically in default, we're not gonna go just yet. I would like to end all these wars, see whether we are positive, whether we can just recover. Otherwise, we will then simply declare bankruptcy indeed. Now, let's talk politics, because there has been a massive shift. Man, I've never seen something like this. The National Liberal Party, under the intelligentsia's leadership, was at 40% not too long ago. Can we actually see this here? Yeah, look at this. Not too long ago, they were at 40%. This is during the war, when they were basically, you know, of course, yeah, things weren't looking too good. We were quite depressed about it, and then they lost this election. Boom. They got annihilated. I have nothing else to say other than I will treat this as the reaction of the Romanian people to an unsuccessful war, to, of course, their standard of living suffering and general unrest rising up, which now brings us to this interesting situation. I thought the landowners were dead. I thought they were done and dusted. Look at this. What is this? 4%? They were basically marginalized. And now they're back. The landowners, the most conservative force in the country, of course, has the ear of Florea Stoza, our king, but man, I can't believe they're back here. But this is the by far more interesting situation. Listen, it's hard. In Victoria 3, if you play optimally, it is hard to even get fascism because, well, most of the time people will be incredibly happy. But now we have an 18.8%, stronger than ever before petite bourgeoisie, and they are in government. Now, they're not fascists, they're just reactionary, but that does mean that we will try to roll a couple of things back. Here's what we do, okay? We're in default anyway, nothing can be changed there. I'm gonna roll back all of these taxes, and I will immediately start a new campaign to basically cement the power of the new reactionary forces. So, what we're going to do is, I'm going to suppress the intelligentsia, the trade unions, obviously, I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Not the Orthodox Church, I will suppress the rural folk, and honestly, just for good measure, let's suppress the industrialists as well, and let's bolster the petite bourgeoisie. I want to achieve a full 180 or 360, whatever you want to see, okay? And now we are at a point where we can roll back our colonial affairs and instead invest these points into law enforcement. Yep. It is time for the turmoil to no longer matter. This is a much more authoritarian approach to everything. And I think actually, I'm going to start upgrading this as well, but we will first have to change the law. Obviously, we are in a very liberal country. Racial segregation has been introduced, and what we have in front of us right here is a country that basically was attempting to westernize, that wanted to bring civil liberties to its citizens, but now has fallen into an abyss. And the very first thing that I will do under this new regime is indeed to pass secret police. Let's see whether we can do it. It would be great. The petite bourgeoisie is in favor of it, so that is an 18.8% chance. If we pass it, we will become a bit of a different state. He, by the way, here, Grigore Dzika, is definitely a war hero. I think he ultimately will be seen like Hindenburg in Germany. He will be seen as a person that fought valiantly, that won all of these battles, that defended, of course, northern Transylvania, and then was stabbed in the back. I hope that he goes into politics. Right now, he's just a landowner, which, you know, he isn't really interesting either. He's just a market liberal, but man, he is definitely a glorious figure. And look at that, the actual leader of the petite bourgeoisie, Lucien Lahovary, he is at 100. A Romanian moderate. Let's see where we go from there. I think so basically when they're loyal, they're less likely to pick up any of the fascist traits, but they are either way reactionary, meritocratic, and patriotic, and that will of course dominate the conversation in our country. Now, we have defeated the uprising right here, which means that we're actually getting our post spec, which is very, very nice, and this might allow me even, I might try to re-establish order here in Borneo myself if the Americans aren't doing it. Ooh, and what is Russia doing right here? Are they puppeting them? Return Tomsk and Kyrgyzia. Ah, they are just claiming what basically are their historical positions right here, Kyrgyzia and Tomsk up there. Alright, and then we have very good Russia borders actually. They just need to annex their puppets and it is an empire for sure. Alright, so what are we looking at? We're still losing money now that the war's over, meaning that we are kind of living over our possibilities. I could crank up the taxes here for sure. I can't really do more consumption tax. You know what I would like to do? I think a lot of the penalties that we currently have actually just come from being in default as is, and the sooner we go and refold, the quicker our recovery period will be over until we can then jump into action again, probably against Austria, let's be real here. I'm just going to declare bankruptcy. Alright, and that is political agitation, which obviously opens up the more reactionary elements, but it also does something else. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a lot on our hands in just the next 20 years. Votes for women. Women in Romania have begun organizing to campaign for their right to vote in general elections. Dora Grigorescu of the trade unions has emerged as a leading figure of this movement. She will be trouble, I think. Sounds like opposition talk or a worthy cause. Definitely not a worthy cause. Carol Falcoianu. The rural folk, huh? I might have to suppress you as well, buddy. Sounds like opposition talk. She is now liked because she is a suffragist trailblazer. If she could stop existing, that would be great, I think, for our country. And then here we have the second one. And this one, as a player, you will rarely ever see. And I love actually seeing it. I actually fixed a bug with it that would make it super easily doable. We want to have a difficult time because that's the way this is designed. Workers in the furniture manufactories have had enough of their poor conditions. Working with the trade unions, they have initiated an industry-wide strike in Wallachia. See that? Listen, being unhappy, we all understand that our country has been in such a pitiful state, but working together with the opposition, the strikes must be suppressed. We will get industrial strikes for 5 years, which is really bad for us, and more pops will become radical. Triggers the event strike, anti-strike action in 30 days. This now means that if we do not fix this, which means that we would have to go on, basically de-radicalizing these people, we will see a general strike. I haven't seen a general strike. I will do everything in my power to not have it occur, but if it were to occur, let's take a look at what it actually does. Anti-strike action. Unwilling to negotiate with the unions, the government has proposed measures aimed at ending the strike. Promotes strike breaking. Gets industrial strike scabs permanently. Manufacturing industry throughput goes up. The trade unions obviously dislike it, the industrialists like it. I'm really hoping that we can turn the industrialists into, sort of collaborators with us. I think that would be a great idea. Right now we're suppressing them, but hey, let's put that aside. It would be nice, right? And here they show their true face. The intelligentsia has turned to communism. This radicalization of the country is crazy. We'll see where we are in 5 years. Listen, if the communists really pull this through, pull out the big gains in elections, maybe we will see a flip actually towards that. Although, I gotta tell you, being a counter-republic in this version of the game, it's dangerous, because people of the old order will definitely hate you. And there they go, suffragists speak in parliament. What a bunch of troublemakers. Proponents of women's suffrage have come to speak before parliament to argue for their cause, prompting ridicule from Carol Moccioni. He is our admiral in China. He is loved. Wow, he's a very popular man. And is he the actual leader of the landowners? Oh, that is interesting. The army is taking a very strong stance here. He is who argues women have no place in parliament. Such hostile tone is a sign that the fairer sex is not ready for political discourse, or who could deny these brave souls the chance to set our country right. I will agitate the trade unions ever more here, for sure. Trade unions escalate their demands. Extremely unhappy with the government, representatives of the trade unions have now escalated matters and are seeking immediate concessions from the government. If nothing is done, the representatives airily suggest that actions may escalate further. We can appease them. We shall grant nothing to this rebel. Insurrectionary. I'd like to see you try. Times like these are what the police are for. You know what? Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree. Oh, and here come the communists. The trade unions are now trying to openly rebel. They would take northern Transylvania and Wallachia with them. I think since we would have the port, we could probably defeat them. And I'm not going to give in here. This is going to be our post-big war civil war. And here they are. The cowards have risen up, and now it is on us to actually destroy them. You can see that Russia is leaning towards us. Britain also wants to quench this revolution. Obviously, this is an actual trade union, a quasi-communist revolution, and we can't really have that, right? So, what we're going to do is we're going to, yet again, ask every good Romanian to stand up and do what must be done. And you know what? At this point, we definitely are looking towards Russia as the big brother that can potentially protect us, and I will offer them an obligation, even if it means that they will pull us into their customs union. And yeah, look at that. General Vlad Poinaru is attempting to make way into towards the coastline here, and he is a vanguardist. He is a hardline communist. We are the first bulwark against communism. And Jesus Christ, they are just racking up the dead. I was looking at this actually before I started recording. I posted about it yesterday on Twitter. If we take a good look at this, no, not the conscription centers. They're very difficult to trace, but rather the barracks. Let's take a look at the workforce here, right? Because it's terrible. It's really, really awful. Take a look at this. 5.2% of this pop is in the workforce, while the rest are dependents. When somebody in a battle gets wounded, rather than killed or just demoralized, they become dependents. This pop, believe it or not, before the war against Austria was at 13%. 13% of the pop was workforce, the rest was dependents. This is an absolute tragedy. At the very least, we have finally passed secret police, as we are going to be winning this war, of course. That shouldn't be a surprise. We were superior, we have Russia on our side. Whether we have to accept the big brother for just a couple of years until, right before the end, we might get independence. Be that as it may. What is the next law that we're going to be passing? This already is, of course, hugely beneficial. We are here at the max for law enforcement, and we're maxing out home affairs as well. We're gonna get the bureaucracy back. Don't worry about it. That will be completely fine. What is more important here is that the suppression is now much more impactful, and the revolution and secession progression speed is also much, much slower. So from there, I think the best choice, yep, there it is to go with outlawed dissent. Let's make sure that we bring back order. Oh my god. Alright, yep, this seems pretty decisive. 1919 election campaign. It is a civil war campaign. The last campaign was at the end of the war against Austria. And the conservatives are absolutely crushing it. And I really like the idea of the military getting incredibly involved. Our military has always been special. Our navy is the biggest source of military power, and yet they're not going to the armed forces. Rather, they are actually going to the landowners, which is quite interesting because, again, there's not really a standing army. Now, Karol Moccioni, who is the admiral in North China, our most prosperous, I would say, colony at this point, he is saying the Conservative Party should be performing even better. And quite frankly, I can't help but agree. Let's take a look at what we're at here now. 73%, look at this. The communists threw it all away. The intelligentsia, when they were national liberal, they were still somewhat legitimate, but now definitely no longer. We are going to have a very decisive victory here for the petite bourgeoisie and everybody that stands with them. Look at this momentum. It's insane. Lucien is winning this. And with that, we have defeated them. Now, obviously, I need to do the... I need to press all these buttons. It's certainly, it's something, right? But after that, we will be in a position where we can just soldier onwards. Oh, and wait a minute, what is going on now? Apparently we broke the strike? Is this because the trade unions lost a civil war? The spirit of the strikers is utterly broken. They no longer have the will to continue their struggle, and the strike has been formally called off by the unions. They have learned to fear the truncheon, which industrialists... maybe? This doesn't sound bad. Round up the instigators. This will not happen again. Weak unions. This must be a bug. Right, I think this should go to the trade unions, but I'll be honest with you, they just got beaten fair and square. I would like to weaken the industrialists, but no, you know what? They have learned to fear the truncheon. Let's go with that. Let's make sure that everybody knows that communism has no home in Romania. Wow. And what a switch it has been. Jakob Sturza has the first truly righteous conservative government in maybe 3 or 4 decades here in Romania. This brings down enactment time, loan interest rate, and it gives us additional loyalists from standard of living increases. We sort of declared this. This used to give you just basically infinite loyalists, and that doesn't really make sense. So let's just pass this law as soon as possible, and we will go from there. Oh, and look at that. We're not gonna get involved here, but it looks like the communist sort of spark has spread to Austria as well now. They got an intelligentsia that is communist, then a social democratic church that is rebelling with them, a feminist trade union leadership, and then the petite bourgeoisie are even radicals. The only ones withstanding this are the industrialists, and now I gotta ask, right? I don't think we even have the potential to get involved in this because, man, this is a bit much for us. We're still barely, keeping ourselves together here, but... do you help communists or do you try to get your land back? Which one makes more sense, right? Oh, and this one was a whole lot faster. Outlawed dissent will be massive, truly massive for us. Who do the armed forces have as a leader? Just a moderate. Okay, who cares? We are an incredibly righteous government, and the question now is, where do you go from there? You could straight up go for oligarchy, but I think there might be a couple of other things that we need to approach. We could approach smallholding, quite frankly. We could dedicate... Oh, man, I would love a militarized police force, but we do not have mass surveillance yet, so that is just not viable. We could just reduce voting power altogether. But then again, what do the, you know what, let me ask, what does the leader of this coalition actually want? The petite bourgeoisie, what can I do for you? We can go for national supremacy. You know what? Yeah, that is a big one. That is a big one. If we bring this back, we basically are back to the old state that we were in about maybe 30 years ago. That is still within our memory for sure. And here right now we have elected bureaucrats as well. The landowners dislike it as well. How much do they dislike it? Not too much. Honestly, this will strengthen the petite bourgeoisie even further. I'm gonna go with elected bureaucrats first and then national supremacy. And this is exactly what we need. We now have fulfilled the journal entry, the moving picture, which lets me choose this right here. What political uses could we find for such an evocative medium? And with that, we are much, much closer to mass propaganda. Still 5 years to go, but what can you do? This is an important tech, because this is actually what unlocks fascism. Before this right here unlocks ethno-nationalist, and then fascism down here. And man, it does look like the communists are going to win this. They're winning every single battle. Now, they don't quite go into communism just yet. It's just a presidential and laissez-faire republic, but obviously that is the start of reforms. And man, they are led by a whole bunch of communists for sure. We have to see what we can do about this. Oh no, and the Kaiser's back. What the hell? Kaiser's back on a different bunch of nonsense, huh? What is going on in these? Feminist, social democrat, moderate, so France is fairly left-leaning. Then we got vanguardist. God damn. That's a lot of communism. I think there's just a high amount of damage. It's weird to, you know, have Britain with a communist in government, but I would compare this basically to, well, just some concessions, but they're completely immobilized. At least for the moment. If they ever try to pass counter-republic, I'm pretty sure we would see a revolution in Britain as well. Yeah, these are dangerous times, the 1920s. Ooh, and this one is interesting. Stop the presses. A newspaper banned under Romanian law has started being printed again under the permissive laws of Austria and smuggled across the border. The communists over here, I mean, not that they are truly communists just yet, they're just led by communists. The communists over here are looking at a situation where they are sabotaging us. We really are. What we are experiencing here is genuinely the dictatorship experience. We are terrible, and other people are trying to sort of deliver their message into our country. And obviously, I'm going to crack down hard on this, and everyone's spreading this filth. And this one right here is actually a nice one. So I don't think elected bureaucrats is going to pass. I'm just going to be honest with you right here. I'm going to stop this for the time being. Germany is offering us a defensive pact. They have very clearly recognized that Austria is a threat in this region. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, look at that. Germany has a wary attitude because Austria is a natural enemy. Italy also hates Austria. Russia fairly neutral. France likes them. They do have a left-leaning government. And then the Netherlands also antagonistic. Maybe Tripolitania will be our great hero that we need against Austria. This is a great defensive pact, though. You know, something that might be much more important here, and this is a big, big question for me. Something that might be much more important for us than, you know, just changing the way bureaucrats work is this. So, the professional army is endorsed by the armed forces and the landowners. It is not endorsed by the rural folk and the trade unions. The national militia is endorsed by the trade unions and the rural folk. Let's kick these out. This is bad, okay? We don't like this. Mass conscription, also actually endorsed by the landowners and the armed forces. You know what? We're going to become a modern army. We're going to have more barracks level, more conscription levels, and a higher conscription rate. We will become the worst possible Romania. Interestingly enough, by the way, Russia has not yet called in its obligation. Ooh, and they do have an obligation for Manchuria as well. If we want Manchuria, I do reckon that we'll have to go ahead and actually, as soon as possible, make them into a dominion. I don't even think I can do it right now. Oh, I probably can't do it because I don't have the capital marked. You know what? I need to go ahead and mark a whole lot more here. I'm not really interested in further colonies. That's completely okay. Yeah, I think these are the areas of interest for us. Oh wow, and that was incredibly fast. We can now mobilize more battalions, but most importantly, I would personally argue, we can actually build more barracks. Now currently I'm very low on our taxes here. We can definitely go much, much higher, and we should probably focus on taxing our enemies, so the intelligentsia. I will take a look at what they consume and then tax that basket in particular. But I think it's time that we start creating an actual professional army via more barracks, and then go on a bit of an exercise with it. And so we're going about actually immediately doubling our potential for troops. From just 22 professional units, we're going to go up another 30 to just 52. And with those, we are then going to go on an adventure. See, this right here is our expedition target. China has splintered and it is in an incredibly weak position. Now, I'm not going to take any territory because I don't want to administer it myself. I think it would be too difficult. Instead, I want to make Manchuria my dominion. Now, do keep in mind that Russia is indeed in a position where, you know, they very much have an obligation from Manchuria and are interested in the region. But if we can secure this, then, hey, it's only what is good for us is good for Russia, right? What I would like to do is, let's just start the dominion play right here. We don't want them to join our wars, so Puppet doesn't make sense. I want them to be a dominion. And maybe I might actually take Shengjing here. They are fearful. Shengjing for another 12. So that would still leave us... Oh no, it would put us over 20. You know what? I'm not going to take a province. That is fine. We're going to mobilize our finest field marshal, which is Grigory Gicha. You may remember him again from the war against the Austrians. And let's start pushing. These are, and I think this must be clear because this is a new order, or rather a revival of the old order, these are nothing but professional troops. The time of conscription, unless we are really in danger for our very existence, might be over, which in turn then means, for the very first time in this playthrough, the armed forces will actually play a role. Oh, and Manchuria just backed down. Romanian Manchuria. I really was hoping they would get some kind of cute flag, you know. Alright, you know, I'm really thinking about this, because right now I'm basically waiting for Lucien to disappear. Now, I love Lucien, he gets a lot of votes for the petite bourgeoisie, but until he disappears, we will not roll another ideology. Will we roll the ideology that we need? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see, right? This is then where we will consider where to go in the last 10 years. As it stands, I don't want to switch into national supremacy, mostly because this would lower the chance for any of the traits that would be interesting. Let's try elected bureaucrats again. Let's try and see where this goes. Oh my god. So they did form their own party now. Mind you though, it is still Lucien. And they are destroying even their old allies. Good god. I think we are basically seeing the exact playbook of the promise of national renewal at the cost of, you know, anybody that really doesn't fit the picture. And our pops are taking the bait. Suffragists killed, I mean, we all know the answer. We won't extend political sympathy to such reckless behavior. You know the answer to this. And you know, I didn't even take a look at his actual traits. This is just perfect. He's a moderate, sure, but he is a moderate within a reactionary force. He's a direct man, a masterful diplomat that is capable of, yep, being incredibly popular. He's a demagogue, basically being a demagogue just for basic, you know, reactionary values. And then he is a bandit. He loves to steal after he is in power. That sounds quite reasonable. Oh wow, and we just passed it, so that is incredibly, incredibly beneficial. The Germans want to take on our debt. It doesn't matter, we're not here for that because we're building up an army. That is why we're losing money. If we weren't building these, then we would be perfectly fine. The last couple of days of the election are now here, and it definitely looks like a complete stomp. Yes, 61% to the Iron Guard. I could even take in the military. I could rule just with the military. Who does the military want to join? Nobody. Really? Okay, yeah, no, I'm gonna make a big, broad government of basically just people that are on the reactionary side of things. Then we're gonna see whether Lucien goes away and we see somebody else. We shall see. Right now, the petite bourgeoisie is still very much powerful, giving us the double bonus here of middle managers. That is a great one. Let's keep it up. And you know what? I mean, why not? Let's pass state religion and take a look at it. And oh my god, that value actually was entirely incorrect. This was before it actually calculated in the factors of the election. Wait a minute. Are you sure I can't just... It's 78%. Okay, you know what? No. We'll keep this consensus-based government right here. But Jesus Christ, 38% for the petite bourgeoisie. Man, that's a number. And would you look at that? Every other country is strong and stable. They are doing incredibly well, except Austria, because they are, of course, a multicultural colossus. And they have decided now, despite, you know, basically settling the issue of the cultures, that the issue of the social question is very important to them. And that is, I mean, that is gonna be absolutely perfect for us. We are going to get our victory, I think. Wow, now this is an event that you don't see often because this is basically just an endgame option. The blasphemy laws. As part of the transition to state religion, the Orthodox Church have introduced and enforced a series of harsh anti-blasphemy laws in North Borneo. These measures are polarizing even among the faithful. Blasphemers shall be put to death. That is because we have outlawed dissent. Jesus Christ. Alright. And just look at how much the intelligentsia really is lost here. They're down to 11.4%. They lost the elections. Being a communist here completely isolated them after we defeated the trade unions in that bloody civil war. Yeah, and there you go. Russia is now inviting us into the customs union. We can't really deny it. And this is so late that it means we're going to be here until around 1935, which means I can't leave until the very end of it. Now, this shouldn't be all that terrible, because it should just mean, yeah, that we basically push everything into their market. We'll be fine, but it's not my dream scenario. Ultimately, this just shows the weakness of Romania as we currently are. And that is state religion. I just want to highlight just how much the character of this country has changed in just 10 years. And I think it should be pointed out just how much the political landscape of Romania in these years has changed. Obviously, this is all related to the great conflict against Austria, but look at that. They are not fascists or anything, but they are deeply, deeply reactionary. They are demagogues. They have made the lives of millions worse by introducing state religion, mass conscription, secret police, outlawed dissent. Things have become a bit dystopian right here. We have won a civil war, we have destroyed a striking population, and I think this is what you would call revanchism. How this ends is something for the next and for the last video of this series. For the moment, I will see you later. Alligator.